to me is to have all these things that you can do if you want to, that you don't have to do if you don't want to do. And there's a way in which American and white and human become synonyms. That why can't we just treat each other as human beings? To me, when I hear it from a white person, it means why can't we all just pretend to be white people? I'll pretend you're a white person, and then you can pretend to be white. Why don't you eat what I eat? Why don't you drink what I drink? Why don't you think like I think? Why don't you feel like I feel? God damn it, I'm so sick and goddamn tired of hearing about that. I'm sick of that. That's what it means to be human being to me. That's what it means to be white. That's what it means to be American. What? You think that, hey, it'll all be fine when we just treat each other like human beings. And what that says to me is, don't be yourself. Be like me. Keep me comfortable. Connect where I'm ready to connect. Come out to my place. Or maybe I'll come down and get some artifacts from your place. That is bullshit. When you say that your ethnicity is American, there is no American ethnicity. You had to throw away your ethnicity to become American. That's what it means. That's what it means. You give up who you are to become American. And you can pretend that it's okay because you're white. When we give up who we are to become American, we know that we're dying from it. You're dying from it too, but you don't know it necessarily. Get ethnic, you know? You know, I'm not going to trust you until you're as willing to be changed and affected by my experience and transformed by my experience as I am every day by yours.
When we talk about racism, we often think about hatred, ignorance, or fear. But what if, behind all that, there is something deeper, more personal? What if racism in America has always been at its core about jealousy? Today, we are breaking down why some people have fought so hard to hold others back and how envy has shaped racial injustice and what this means for America right now. Watch and pay attention, and I will share my thought later.
Stop lying to yourself. We're not white. We lack melanin. So take a moment, pause the video, and really look up what melanin does for the body and how it helps us be a part of the planet. Now that you're back, tell me, we can't be out in the sun. We can't have the same relationship to the planet as those who have melanin. It's our inferiority, not supremacy, not superiority. It is our one inferiority. And then, of course, as any bully would do, when you feel inferior, you would make yourself appear superior by bullying someone to make them feel less than you, instead of finding out how you can be the best version of yourself so that you can be your own version of greatness. And that's all we have to do. There are all these systems for distribution of resources that are built based on our greed, our desire to get resources that other people have access to and we didn't. It's that simple. They're already built, and all we have to do is remove the desire for greed and control over those resources and become a sharing, humane people. The example exists in melanated folks. They don't treat us the way we treat them. They treat us better than we treat ourselves. So let's learn. Let's enjoy the planet. Let's stop all this foolishness and let's support those with melanated skin so that we may learn how to be humane in our own way. Race for what?
Racism is about jealousy. If you think that's a reductive statement, please stick with me. When I say jealousy, I'm talking about insecurity, which is really what jealousy is, but I think it's easier to understand if I say insecurity rather than just jealousy. Because we know from appropriation that we are very jealous of other cultures. Why would we want to listen to the music, eat the food, wear the clothes, do the hairstyles, have everything, the language, but not give credit where credit is due and not uplift the people who created it? White people are so lost in feeling like they don't have a connection to culture, especially many of us who are very far removed from our European roots. And I think the need to fill that space and that insecurity of this lack of culture and lack of something to call our own is often filled with cultural appropriation and the idea that being white is superior. I was first introduced to this concept of racism being jealousy in college, and I can't trace it back to one particular scholar, but I would like to give credit where credit is due to that Black scholar. If you can find anything tracing it to one particular person, please leave that in the comments. I think it's important to think about racism in this way if we want to unlearn it. Because, as some people say who are non-monogamous, or anyone who's just working on their relationships, jealousy is an indicator that something is not quite right with us. It's an indicator of our insecurity and how we might be feeling. It's not about what our partner is doing or what someone on Instagram is doing with their life that makes us feel inadequate. It's about something going on inside. And I think we really need to interrogate that. What is it about people of color showing excellence, people of color maybe being more in touch with culture, people of color being more in touch with the environment, people of color making better food, and everything else that we envy? What does that trigger in us? And why do we have the need to put those people down? It's about jealousy. And if we can figure out that we're feeling that way and trace that feeling back to maybe some of our unconscious biases, I think it's a lot easier to start thinking about how can we unlearn that? How can I feel secure in my identity as a white person who has roots in maybe Italian and like other cultures, but like doesn't really feel connected to anything? How can I feel secure in myself to not want to put others down, whether that be racism or any other form of discrimination, or just plain hating on another woman because she's amazing? You know, I think this makes it seem like racism is very simple, but it also just helps us frame it in a way that's accessible to us. We know that dismantling racism starts with individual work, and personal growth is all about thinking about the hard things about yourself and the things and parts of yourself that you don't like. And jealousy is one of those things. No one wants to be jealous. It's an awful, awful feeling. And we don't want to admit that we're jealous. And we shy away from that, but it's something we can interrogate. And I think that is going to help us go a long way. Anyway, just my thoughts.
So I was raised that Black people were God's favorite and they were the superior race. And it was interesting to be raised with that mentality because I think it's different than a lot of how other white people were raised. And I do believe that if more people were raised this way, the world would be a little bit better of a place and maybe we can get along a little bit nicer together. Obviously, there's pros and cons to everything. So I would love to discuss the pros and cons of what it was like to be raised with this mentality, as well as what you think about it and what you think we should do going forward to raise the next generation of children who are carrying the future for us. So how this mentality came about, I was really quizzical and curious as a child and very outspoken. it's interesting to look back now that we're in this ginger talk right now. I'm kind of reliving a few of the silly little traumas that we face as gingers. And I noticed that I was more outspoken between the ages of 0 and 8. And once I started getting really made fun of as a ginger, I kind of lost my voice and I wasn't as brave or outspoken, and I was shy and timid. So it's kind of interesting to have that realization now, so many years later. Anyway, back to the important topic here. The way that this mentality was brought on to me was, as I said, I was very outspoken and, I was quizzical and curious as a child. So before the age of 6, I asked my mom, why do we call them Black people when they're more different shades of brown? And I asked her, why do people treat them differently or call them names? Like, what does this mean? Why is this happening? And how do you explain race and racism to a child that is under the age of 6 in a way that they can understand? Because obviously they're not going to be able to comprehend or grasp the entirety of the depth of what racism really truly is. So how do you explain that to a child? She knew that I loved my brownies and my cookies baked a little bit longer than you're supposed to, because the crispy edge of the brownie was always my favorite. And I loved when the chocolate chip cookie was a little bit crispy on the outside and a little gooey on the inside. And that was the perfect way to bake the cookies and bake the brownies. So she used that analogy. And yes, it sounds crazy, but as a 4-year-old child, it made perfect sense. And she used that analogy and she said, you know how you like your cookies and your brownies baked a little bit extra? That's kind of what God did with Black people. He took more time and more love into creating Black people. And that's why they're a little bit darker than you. He just baked them a little bit longer. That's how she described race to me. And she said that anybody who talks badly about them or is mean to them is just jealous. So right away, I was kind of just like completely infatuated and just in awe of Black people, because I'm like, oh my gosh, what is it like to be God's favorite? What is it like to, just be loved a little bit more from God? Like, I just thought it was incredible and amazing. And so I always just gravitated towards Black people because I was like, oh my God, like they're so lucky. Do they know how lucky they are? Like, how cool is it that God spent a little bit more time on them? I was fascinated by it.
Jealousy is wanting what someone else has, their beauty, talent, culture, influence, or success. And in American history, racism has often been the marks covering that envy. From the very beginning, African people brought to the America were seen not only as free labor, but as human beings with extraordinary physical strength, resilience, creativity, and culture. Slave owners felt that if these people were free, they would thrive, and that success would expose the lies of white superiority. Think about it. Why create laws to keep someone down unless deep down you believe they have the power to rise up? Let's look at the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921. Black Wall Street was one of the most prosperous African American communities in the country. But instead of celebrating this achievement, white mob destroyed it. Why? Envy. They saw wealth, success, and unity, and they wanted it gone. Or consider the entertainment industry. Jazz, rock and roll, hip-hop, all Black innovations, and yet, so often, these styles were copied, repackaged, and sold by white artists for bigger profits. That is not just racism. That is cultural theft, born from wanting what you cannot create. Even in sports, from Jack Johnson to Serena Williams, Black excellence has often been met with extra rules, criticism, and barriers. Because dominance in these spaces challenges the idea of white superiority, and deep down, that stirs jealousy. Today, racism still wears mark of jealousy. Where Black professionals climb the corporate ladder, there are whispers about them being diversity hires. When Black entrepreneurs create billion-dollar brands, there are sudden calls to regulate their industries. And when Black voices dominate culture, from TikTok dance to political movements, others rush in to dilute or co-opt them. Systemic racism thrives because envy turns into policies, biases, and gatekeeping. Instead of competing fairly, the system tries to rewrite these rules to keep certain people at the top and others at the bottom. How do we deal with a racism that is rooted in jealousy? By exposing it, by naming it, And by refusing to let envy block progress, we need to dismantle the myth of scarcity, the idea that one group's success means another group's loss. America has enough space, wealth, and opportunity for everyone, but that means some people must let go of their fear of losing power. True equality will only happen when success is celebrated no matter who achieves it, when culture is appreciated instead of stolen, and when differences are seen as strength instead of threats. Racism is not just hate, it is envy with power, and the sooner we say that, the sooner we can strip it of its power. Thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comment box below. Until next time, cheers and have a good one.